Hello all. It's been a while. It's just been a while. We'll just say that. So, it's been a while. Why would I be doing a video? Well, if you look at the title, you probably figured it out. Wrestling Observer Awards came out. The last video that I did with everybody, we talked about the Wrestling Observer Awards. And so, I was like, you know what? I kind of planned on talking about it. I've planned on talking about a lot of stuff. You know, Cody happened, all of that news, and everything else. There's been a ton of stuff that's happened that I was like, I should talk about it. And then I just don't do it. However, today was different. So the Observer Awards came out, like 4 days ago, I think. And I was expecting the craziness. I was expecting the overreactions. I was expecting the absolute idiocy. I was expecting the WWE people that you would expect, who have turned into the TNA people that back in 2007, when I first came on YouTube, and, me, Bill and Doug, all of that. That stupidness that the TNA fans had, now, for some reason, is now in WWE land. I don't know why. I can't fathom it, but it's there. And so I had watched, I think, like 3 or 4 different people talk about the Observer Awards. So today, I go onto YouTube, and YouTube recommends, videos. I had like 5 recommendations for the Observer Awards. I listened to about 5 to 10 minutes of each of these videos. And they were shit. They were like, oh my god. And some of these were people who were channels from sites, wrestling media sites, people who definitely get paid to follow this crap, the all of that. And it's the people you probably suspect. It's the ones who, magically release those beautiful weekend overnights, which, everyone knows comes from one place. The people who, try their best to spin everything WWE way because they want access to WWE, or they think that maybe there's a job for them somewhere down the line in WWE, so they're going to be the next Ryan Satin, whoever the fuck wants to be the next Ryan Satin, I don't know. And all of that. And it finally got to me. I was like, these people are so stupid. And it's not just them, it's like all of these WWE fans that I'm just like, how can you be this stupid? They get mad. They got mad last year because, AEW won everything. And we heard the same crap that we heard. And now Jim Cornette isn't on this. Oh, well, Dave picks the winners. Dave's never picked the winners. Dave doesn't even pick the nominees. The readers basically send in their ballots, and then they tabulate, and it's whoever the readers sent in. So Dave has, no control over this. And if you actually listen to Dave, you would know this, because some of these winners, for example, WWE winning worst promotion, he didn't agree with. Now, he agreed WWE was shit, but it wasn't the worst promotion. He said, yet ROH went out of business, basically. There you go there. And that CMLL, if you actually follow CMLL, I shouldn't say follow, if you're aware of everything going on in CMLL, even from an outsider looking in, the fact that, and much like WWE, built in a way that it cannot fail, has been complete and utter crap the last year, probably should have won that award. And he said this. Now, for those of you who may come across here and be like, oh, he's talking about the Observers, let me explain to you something. For a long time, Jim Cornette, this is a great example. Jim Cornette, for a long time, I have a book of Jim Cornette's where he champions the Observer Awards. Why? Because they're voted for by, smart wrestling fans who have a good understanding of the wrestling business, and for that reason, they're pretty accurate. Not exact, because, fan bias, all of that is going to come into it. We all know that. I'm going to look this up real quick. I should have done this before, so... Awards. We're going to go right here. Okay. Let me... You know what? I didn't go to the right place. F4... There we go. So anyways, and he knows this, because the fan base, the figure 4 wrestling, fan base, is seen as, at least informed. They're informed. People kind of know like what to expect, and all of that greatness. So I'm going to go over, the people who won. I'm going to go over the categories. I'm going to explain to people why certain people won. Now, people go, well, the reason why AEW does so well is because, Dave somehow influences people's opinions. Like I just said, Dave didn't agree with all of the winners. Now, he agreed with some of them. He agreed with most of them. But if you don't understand why the people who won, you're out to lunch. You truly are. You need to understand that AEW is not perfect. AEW is very, very good. It's often great. The problem is, every other wrestling promotion in the world is at best good. It's often okay. Even New Japan. I heard one guy go, "Oh, this is a site that primarily likes AEW and New Japan," which automatically means they have no idea what they're talking about, because the site for and the readers, if you know where to go and you know where to find the readers, will tell you New Japan hasn't been good. New Japan hasn't been good for about 2 years because of booking and the pandemic. Right? So if you're going to sit there and say, "Oh, well, they only like certain things," understand that, yes, AEW is like way up here, right? AEW is way up here. Then you probably have Stardom, because Stardom grew during the pandemic. It's probably the only promotion other than AEW that grew during the pandemic. Though I guess you could probably say GCW too, but we'll get to that in a minute. Then you probably have New Japan, maybe. Some people would tell you, maybe not. Maybe Noah has eclipsed them because New Japan's booking is so wretched. Though I would say that the best parts of New Japan are still good enough to lift it above Noah. Noah's style, with the no clap crowds and only being able to have so many people at the shows in Japan, is better to watch as far as a Westerner watching it. I think most people would say that, where New Japan just comes off very flat. It's hard to watch. It's just not fun to watch, which sucks because, they were so good for so long. There's the issue. It's not that, oh my God, it's that AEW, and now you don't have NXT either, because, over the last probably 2 years, NXT has slowly started to diminish for various reasons. And now NXT is a completely different, and you can argue about that for forever. Is that good? Is it bad? Whatever. It's not about that. But it's not there. And so now you have an issue. Now you have an issue where you have one really good, two great promotion, and all of the other ones are just kind of not that good. At best, they're good to okay sometimes. So yes, because of that, AEW is going to win a lot. This is also a US-based poll for the most part. On top of that, nobody watches Impact. Nobody watches Impact. Impact, nobody watches them. So they are probably they probably should win some of these or do better in some of these awards, and they don't. That's fair, but no one watches them, and it's a fan-based award. So what are you gonna do? ROH died. Pretty much. And so what are you left with? And then WWE. And yes, most of the Observer readers do not like WWE because it sucks. It's horrible. It's been horrible for a long, long time. It was tolerable, and then it sucks. You know, this currently, I have not watched WWE come March in almost 4 years. That is the long. If you took, I started watching WWE in like '85, right? If you took from '85 to now, this 4 year stretch, if you combined everything before this 4 year stretch started, if you combined all those times I was just like, I'm not watching WWE anymore, I added it up today. I'm pretty sure it comes up to like 3 years. That's like almost 30 years of watching wrestling where for 3 years I didn't watch WWE. We're now at 4 currently. That's crazy. That shouldn't happen, and yet here we are. It's that bad, and nothing they do makes me want to come back. Nothing at all. So yeah, so I'm going to go through these awards. I'm going to explain to you why the people won, why the people didn't, and the whole bit. So let's get started. Let's talk about this. So the Luthez Ric Flair Award, this is for the best overall pro wrestler, right? So this is draw, in-ring, all of that. Everything combined. Now, remember, there are no draws in WWE. The only draw in the past year for WWE, you could argue Brock Lesnar, definitely John Cena. That's it. No one else in WWE draws. Look at the house show numbers. Look at the MSG numbers. Look what happened, why they had to put John Cena on the last MSG shows. Look at the current MSG. They don't draw. The brand draws. We know this is what WWE has wanted for years. They're there now. So yes, there you go. So throw that argument out the case. So when you're going to point the scoreboard and say $1 billion, realize that had nothing to do with anyone on the roster except maybe two people, which would be Ronda Rousey and Brock Lesnar, and they're not even full-time people. So there you go. Okay, so Wrestler of the Year, Kenny Omega won. Shouldn't surprise anybody. Had 3 belts, was a champion in 3 different promotions, increased the business in all 3 promotions. The whole bit, had amazing matches in all 3 promotions. So he won. Roman Reigns was 2. Roman Reigns had a strong year. A lot of people, though, would point to his drawing ability. A lot of people will point to the fact that while last year was a much stronger year, this year not so much. And people kind of got tired of it. And, there you go. Shingo was 3. That's your New Japan, your main New Japan guy. He's primarily here because he had amazing matches. The same with Bryan Danielson. Then you had Utami, who is from Stardom, who is a female. She's number 5. You had CM Punk, who was 6. Suri was number 7. She's also from Stardom, so Stardom having a strong year because they actually grew. They had amazing matches, all of that. Adam Page, Nakajima, and Jon Moxley. That rounds up your top 10, and with Will Ospreay as an honorable mention. So, again, why did Kenny Omega win? Because he was a champion in 3 different promotions. He drew in all 3 promotions. He had great matches all year. There we go. Okay, so we go down to the next group. Maybe we can log in. This is so wonderful, isn't it? This is so wonderful. I'm so prepared. Okay, so there's Kenny Omega. Okay, mixed martial arts, most valuable player. No one cares about this really, but Usman won. We're not here to talk about the mixed martial arts stuff. Most outstanding wrestler. So this would be basically the best in-ring wrestler. Shingo won. If you followed any sort of, he had probably the best in-ring year all year. Bryan Danielson was 2. Probably if he had wrestled all years, especially if he had wrestled probably more in AEW, he may have won. He had an amazing last 6 months. There's no question about that. But here we are. Kenny Omega. We already talked about Kenny Omega. Will Ospreay was out for a stretch, so there you go. Suri, Ray Phoenix, Utami again. Ishii always is high on this because he is awesome in the ring. And then you have Nakajima and Nakaneo. Again, there you go. Like people will go, well, there's no WWE people on this list. You're right, because in ring WWE is not very good, and there are better people. So there you go. Again, we will skip the MMA stuff. Tag Team of the Year, Young Bucks. Penta and Ray Phoenix, FTR, Zack Sabre Jr., T.I., all the way down. Usos got 6. Now, and Randy Orton and Riddle got 8. I know that will piss people off. I know people will go, well, they should be higher. No, they didn't have good years. WWE is not a tag team promotion. They throw tag teams together. They don't give you, I don't understand how you could argue that the Young Bucks wouldn't be the best tag team of the year. I cannot. Best on interviews, MJF, go away. Eddie Kingston, CM Punk, Jon Moxley, Dan Lambert. Roman Reigns is 6th. Paul Heyman is 7th. Don Callis, Bryan Danielson, and Miro. WWE sucks at promos. They're all scripted. AEW, I think even the detractors, I would hope even the detractors would say AEW is better at promos than WWE is. They probably won't because they hate AEW for whatever reason, because it's not WWE, but there you go. Promotion of the Year, AEW, I already explained this. Stardom was 2nd. New Japan was 3rd. Game Changer 4, I don't know about that. UFC, you could argue UFC should have been 1. I would do the same thing. WWE was 6th. Then you had Pro Wrestling Noah, Impact, DDT, and Dragon Gate. Dragon Gate never does well on this, even though they probably should, but they never do. Much like Impact, not enough people watch Dragon Gate, so they never get enough votes. Game Changer being 4, I don't know about that personally, but you have Game Changer had a massive year the past year, but that is a little silly. I will agree with that. Like I said, this is basically AEW or UFC, but so again, in the Observer Awards, UFC used to do better. UFC, for various reasons, now is not as loved as much in the Observer Awards, so they did not do as well, much like WWE. So there you go. Okay, best weekly TV show: Dynamite, Rampage, New Japan Strong. SmackDown was 4. Impact, NXT was 6th. That's probably higher than a lot of people thought they were going to be. Ring of Honor, We Are Stardom, AEW Dark, and then WWE NXT UK. Not enough people watch WWE NXT UK, folks. That's why they fell for. That's why they are where they are. Dynamite is often considered. What they are putting on TV right now is really good. It's not always great. It's not always good. Sometimes, there are weeks where I'm like, that show wasn't the best. Strong is probably consistently a better show, but not enough people watch Strong. SmackDown, even WWE fans would say, is the better show of the two. I'm sure WWE fans, but they get so much better. This isn't about rank. This isn't about ratings. This is about the show that you think is the best. Just because it's the highest rated show doesn't mean it's the best show. So there we go. Let's see. Pro Wrestling Match of the Year. Young Bucks versus Penta and Phoenix. I think most people thought that was going to be the case. I was there live. It was one of the best matches I've ever seen live. Those shouldn't surprise people. Will Ospreay versus Shingo. Kenny Omega versus Bryan Danielson. Bryan Danielson versus Adam Page. Utami versus Suri. Walter versus Dragunov. Let's see. Ibushi versus Jay White. Kenny Omega versus Adam Page. Will Ospreay versus Shingo. And Daniel Bryan versus Suzuki. That one, I love Daniel Bryan. I love Minoru Suzuki. I wouldn't have put it that high, but What are you going to do? But I don't think that should shock people. That, Young Bucks versus Penta and Phoenix has won pretty much every match of the year on various things. So that shouldn't surprise people. I don't know why you would be upset about that. That should make sense. Let's see, MMA. We don't care about MMA. Let's see. Now we're going to get to the category B awards. So your United States MVP, Kenny Omega. Again, that shouldn't surprise people. He won Best Wrestler. You would hope the Best Wrestler of the Year would win this. Roman Reigns was second. Then Bryan Danielson, CM Punk, Jon Moxley, Adam Page. I could definitely see for this, if you weren't going to vote Kenny Omega, I'd definitely see CM Punk for this. Japanese MVP, Shingo. I think that's a pretty good bet. Mexico MVP. Basically flip a coin. It's either going to be Psycho Clown or Van Kingo. I would have gone Psycho Clown. He's the better draw, but what are you going to do? Europe MVP, you could get a little on this because Zack Sabre Jr. is on this list, and Zack Sabre Jr. I don't think wrestled one match in Europe, but Will Ospreay won, then Walter. It's pretty close. It was 345 to 298. So about 50 votes. So, that's really not a lot. And so we're pretty close, and you would expect, that's what I would expect it to be. But again, not enough people watch NXT UK, so they're not going to probably vote for, I'm sure that's what it is. You had the Danny Hodge non-heavyweight MVP. Darby Allin won that. I think that's pretty self-explanatory. Phoenix was second. Hiromu was third. Desperado was fourth. Skywalker was fifth. He's from DDT, for those of you not DDT, Dragon Gate. Van Kingo, Bryan Danielson, Robbie Eagles. Bryan Danielson and Robbie Eagles tied. Sammy Guevara and Bandito. Bryan Danielson, you might say he should have won this, but I don't think people think of him as a lighter weight guy. I think people, do consider Darby Allin. He wrestles in that style. You have the Women's Wrestling MVP. Now, this is something where I could see the WWE fans throwing a massive hissy, even though they shouldn't. Because, let's talk about this. So you have Utami as one. I'm shocked by this. I thought Britt Baker would win this. She didn't. She was two. Britt Baker is probably the hottest in the U.S. as much as WWE fans don't want to hear this. Female wrestler in the U.S. Utami still won. I'm kind of shocked by that. I didn't think she would win. And then Suri is third, so that's even crazier. But Bianca Belair, Charlotte Flair, Donna Purrazzo, and Becky Lynch were all on here. They all did not do very well. If you want to know why they didn't do very well, it's because, let's see, Belair was super hot last year. As someone that doesn't even watch WWE, I can tell you, going into WrestleMania, she felt hot. From somebody just watching and seeing people talk, she felt like a hot commodity. And coming out of it, she felt like a hot commodity. And then WWE does what WWE does and didn't book her all that great. And then you had the Becky Lynch thing, and people will go, oh, but she's going to win at WrestleMania. But she feels so worse today than she did then. Becky hasn't been really over since she got back. That people aren't buying the heel shtick. People aren't really big on Charlotte Flair. She feels like she has devolved, as has most of the WWE women, if you actually watch. I am, if there was somebody that should be on here that's not on here, it would probably be Sasha. You can go back and look. She is probably the actual needle mover for the women in WWE. She was not on this list, so if you want to gripe about that, you can gripe about that. But people need to realize that, last year at WrestleMania, you could make a very strong argument that WWE had one of the best women's roster from Raw, SmackDown, NXT UK. If you include all of the women that were on there, they had one of the best women's rosters of all time. Now, they've let a lot of people go. And because of that, and because of the booking, it's not nearly as good. And so now you're left with AEW, who should not even be like even close to where WWE is, probably for another year, and yet here we are. And I don't think it should shock people that Britt Baker, because she is the hot commodity when it comes to women's wrestling in North America. Utami was definitely, she had an amazing year. If you don't understand that, I don't know what to tell you. Let's see. Box office draw. Now, this is something where the fans don't vote on. This is something where Dave actually picks. Now, used to be people would vote on this. But he thought it was stupid because he thought he would just decide because he had all the metrics. So, MMA, Conor McGregor. Pro wrestling, CM Punk. Number 2, right, is John Cena. Number 3 was Kenny Omega. Number 4 was Roman Reigns. And number 5 was Brock Lesnar. Now, if you want to know why Kenny Omega is above Roman Reigns, it's because he drew for 3 different promotions. CM Punk did something that virtually nobody has ever done. That's why, and the business metrics first that out. John Cena came back, had a massive impact on business, but wasn't around long enough. So, there we go. Let's see. Feud of the year, Kenny Omega versus Adam Page. Now, I actually saw somebody be like, well, you know, people just don't like the way WWE does their feud just because they suck. What feud in WWE has meant anything? Roman Reigns and Brock Lesnar was 6 on here, but that was it. So, you know, please, if you come across this, please give me something. I'm going to MJF versus Chris Jericho, Conor McGregor versus Dustin Poirier from MMA. Already talked about Roman Reigns and Brock Lesnar, Will Ospreay versus Shingo, Nick Gage versus Matt Cardona, which has been probably the best angle in all of pro wrestling. I know people don't want to hear that, but it is. Roman Reigns versus John Cena, and then Julia versus Tam Nakano. So yeah, and then Kenny Omega also versus Impact. 10 was a tie. So yeah, but you know, Kenny Omega versus Adam Page was pretty much what, about 6 months, and was really well. It was a true long-term storyline that paid off. Was really good. So I don't know what to tell you. Most improved, you had Ty Conte, Dante Martin, Saya Kaminita, Jeff Cobb, Jungle Boy, and let's see, Britt Baker was on this list, Bianca Belair was on this list, and Miro was on this list. I have no problems putting Ty Conte on this list. Winning, I think that's pretty self-explanatory. Most charismatic, CM Punk, MJF, Eddie Kingston, and then you have Roman Reigns. I mean, CM Punk gets massive reactions. MJF definitely, for a heel, does amazing things. Eddie Kingston can get on, can just, like, he oozes charisma. I don't know what to tell you. Again, AEW is better at this because they don't have the scripted promos. Things are more organic. When things are more organic, charisma comes off a lot more. If you don't understand that, I don't know what to tell you. The Bryan Danielson Award. Bryan Danielson won the Bryan Danielson Award, which is kind of funny. Zack Sabre Jr., I think, had won it the last, I don't know how many times. It would be kind of funny if Zack Sabre Jr. won it again. I don't think he was going to win it again, but we will see. Hopefully, now that the COVID stuff in Japan is now over, we can actually have Bryan Danielson versus Zack Sabre Jr. The Bruiser Brody Memorial Award, so this is for Best Brawler, and it was Jon Moxley. I don't think anyone can really argue about that. Then you had Eddie Kingston, Ishii, Shingo, Suzuki, Nakajima, Walter with 7, Nick Gage with 8, and Miro. So, and Lance Archer. They tied. Again, how do you argue that? I mean, when you look at brawling matches, he had probably the best brawling matches. So there you go. Best high flyer. What WWE guy is a great high flyer? Really? I mean, Rey Fenix won this. So yeah. Most overrated. Now, you would think this would be where WWE would start to dominate, and they kind of did. Evil, the New Japan guy, you know, the promotion that apparently the Observer Award people love, was on this list. Then you had Roman Reigns, Omos, The Miz, Keiji Muto, And he deserves to probably even be higher on this list. And I'm a giant Muta fan. Charlotte Flair, Cody Rhodes, Jade Cargill, Chris Jericho, and the Great Okan. Now, most overrated usually means the person who is over pushed. So, for those of you not aware. So, yes, Roman Reigns was on here because a lot of people complained that Roman got this massive push and basically destroyed any chance anyone had to get over. And that's exactly what happened. When you look, especially when you look at the Big E, right? The Big E push that wasn't a push, because Big E came out of it far worse than when he went in. And now he's back being, part of a comedy act. So I don't know what to tell you. Most underrated. So here is some. This is one where WWE pretty much dominated. Ricochet, Chad Gable, Mustafa Ali, Ricky Starks, Riddle, Daniel Garcia, Cody Rhodes, Finn Balor, Anthony Bowens, and Santana Ortiz. That should tell you that this is usually the people who are under pushed. There's so many WWE people on this list that's kind of crazy, especially when you consider the fact that AEW has way too many people on it. A lot of people complain about that not enough people get enough spots or not enough on air, and yet this is what. So there are people in WWE that these fans want to see that they're not seeing, or they're not seeing in the roles that they would like them to be in. Again, I don't understand why the WWE faithful can't understand this. They can't understand that it is the way the promotion is ran, the storylines, everything about it. Rookie of the Year, Jade Cargill. I have no problem. I don't think there's anyone even close to that. Jack Cartwheel, Lady C, Nick Wayne. Let's see, Ninja Back, Colton Gunn, Kevin Knight. That's more indicative on the problems with NXT, I would say. If you're wondering where like Hook and what's his name from NXT, I can't even think of his name, are not on this, they will be on this next year. It'll probably be between both of them as far as who the Rookie of the Year will be. Best non-wrestler. This used to be like your manager types, that sort of thing. Paul Heyman won this. Don Callis was second. Was 5 votes that separated the two of them. So if Don Callis had probably been around all year, he probably would have won. Much farther down the list was Dan Lambert, Taz, Malcolm Bevins, and then Tony Schiavone. Best television announcer, Excalibur. Then you had Kevin Kelly. Now, Excalibur is really good. Like, I personally have not liked Excalibur when he does his PWG shtick. In AEW, he's been completely different. I don't know. I can't explain. Even on like Dark, when he's with Taz, where he's a little bit more like he was in PWG, but he's still a little bit more reeled in. He's not being completely zany. He's really good. And so, yeah. And then you have Kevin Kelly. I probably would have voted Kevin Kelly myself. Tony Schiavone, Pat McAfee, Stuart Fulton, Taz, Ian Riccaboni, Jay Church, Jim Ross, and John Anik. I wouldn't put John Ross on here, but hey, what are you going to do? Worst announcer, Corey Graves, Michael Cole, Matt Stryker, Aiden Verk. He probably should have won this. Chris Jericho, he's really bad. Beth Phoenix, Pat McAfee, Mark Henry, Kevin Gill, and Brian Saxton. Kevin Gill is probably just as bad as Adam Verk. He's horrible. Horrible, 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 horrible. Now, there's a lot of WWE people on here. I would say people get mad because they always put it is not these people's faults, because if you look at them when they're not being overproduced, they're really good. Michael Cole is a very, very good announcer, I think, if he wasn't being overproduced by WWE. Same thing with Corey Graves. Same thing with Adron Verk. He wasn't a good fit. Beth Phoenix, I'm sure, is the exact same way. Pat McAfee, I'm sure, is the exact same. I'm sure he's not as overproduced as a lot of people, but there you go. Byron Saxon, probably the exact same way. It's because they're overproduced. It's not because, oh my God, we hate WWE. It's because they hate the fact that the verbiage. They just hate the way WWE does their announcing. It's not that they hate these people. I don't think people get that. I don't think they get it at all. Best major wrestling show, AWE All Out. Full Gear was second. Stardom Queendom was third. AEW Double or Nothing, Cyber Fight Festival was fifth, along with UFC 268. Stardom 5-star Grand Prix was 7. Keep in mind, in the Stardom ones, those are all women's shows. All women. Like there's no guys on that show. AEW Dynamite Grand Slam, NW, Wrestle Kingdom Night 2 and Wrestle Kingdom Night 1. So no WWE stuff. Shouldn't surprise anybody. I don't know, I didn't watch any WWE stuff, but I'm pretty sure the show that I heard most people say was the best WWE show was the second Saudi show. And people aren't going to vote for that because they hate the Saudi shows. So there you go. And we will see that here in a little bit. Let's see, worst wrestling show. I didn't see any WWE stuff. WWE is all on here. I would not have voted for WWE stuff on here. I take it back. Triple Mania is on here. Triple A shows are notoriously really bad. I probably would have put. To me, the worst show I saw was GCW's Art of Warfare, personally. So I will defend WWE here. Even Dave said he didn't think this was probably really indicative, but I think this is just people just really, really, really upset with the way WWE is, and it's a mainly U.S. based thing, and so that's what you're gonna get. So so if you want to bitch about a category, WWE fans, here you go. I will accept bitching. Worst major show, no problem. You have that one. Best wrestling maneuver, Buckshot Lariat won. One Winged Angel, that had been the winner the last couple times. I mean, it's best wrestling maneuvers with best wrestling maneuver. Most disgusting promotional act. Firing wrestlers during a pandemic while setting record profits, WWE. Number 2, continued relationship with Saudi Arabia. That has been like a big thing with the readers, is that they don't like it. And let me explain this to people who are still listening that don't understand the WWE thing and why a lot of people don't like it. It's not that they're doing shows in Saudi Arabia. That is part of it, but that's not all of it. The bigger issue that people have is that they run those, oh, look at the wonderfulness that is Saudi Arabia. They are one of two, I could be wrong, somebody can point this out if I am, but 2 companies that do this, that basically do PR crap for Saudi Arabia. Oil companies don't do that. I can tell you, oil companies don't do that. Oil companies don't even like dealing with Saudi Arabia, but they feel that they have to, so that's the only reason they do. And they have workers over there. Think about that. But yeah, so then WWE's handling of COVID. Thriller having Evander Holyfield was on here. Joey Ryan booking himself on a show claiming it was for a women's charity event. That probably should have been one. I won't deny that. Dana White running full house shows with no masks. This is one of the reasons why UFC did not do good on these, is because people were very mad at Dana White. They were very mad at UFC on how they handled COVID and all of that stuff. WWE false advertising of talent they know won't appear. That is a constant issue with WWE. Liv Morgan scripted to say Lynch's contract is why wrestlers were fired. Yeah, that's pretty shitty. WWE changing NXT, and then Joe Rogan promoting COVID misinformation, which I find kind of weird, but it is what it is. So, then you have worst television show. Raw won this. Completely understand this. It's 3 hours. People don't like it. People want it to be 2 hours. It's probably, as long as it is 3 hours, people are going to say it is the worst television show. NXT 2.0, so this is not NXT, this is NXT 2.0, was second. This is the show most people see that they think is horrible. The people that do watch it, a lot of people don't watch it, so there you go. Impact Wrestling, WWE 205 Live, SmackDown, with 17 people, by the way, voted for SmackDown, so it wasn't that many people. NWA Power, that probably should be way higher, to be honest. I would say should be NXT 2.0 because that has the wider audience, and then NWA Power. Then Rampage actually had 8 votes for worst wrestling promotion, or worst program, so that's kind of okay. Worst match of the year. Damian Priest versus The Miz. I believe that is the zombie match that I've never seen. Randy Orton versus The Fiend. Randy Orton versus Alexa Bliss. Then you have Britt Baker and Rebel versus Nyla Rose and Vicky Guerrero. That match sucked ass. Alexa Bliss versus Shayna Baszler. Sarray versus Lash Legend. Becky Lynch versus Bianca Belair. That was the SummerSlam match. So yeah, Charlotte Flair versus Nia Jax. BFAB versus Elektra Lopez. And then Chris Jericho versus Nick Gage. 19 people voted for that. That is probably the most over horrible match I've ever seen then, because that match was just insane. But I like that match, but what are you gonna do? Worst feud of the year. So people got mad about this, about Randy Orton versus The Fiend, because Observer people don't like The Fiend. They don't like Alexa Bliss because they're not technical wrestlers. They tell stories, and that's not what the Observer people like, right? Keep that in mind. Keep that in mind. So that one, I think most people would agree, even though I didn't even watch, but I didn't watch WWE, but continually seeing clips, continually on Twitter, continually seeing people talk about it, it was very evident they were doing what Lucha Underground used to do, but by everyone's account, Lucha Underground did it better. And if Lucha Underground that went out of business was doing it better than WWE is, that's saying something. So yes, it probably shouldn't be good. Alexa Bliss versus Shayna Baszler. Cody Rhodes versus Anthony Ogogo. Shane McMahon versus Braun Strowman. Becky Lynch versus Bianca Belair. Matt Hardy, because it did nothing for Bianca Belair. People were very mad about this. Matt Hardy versus Orange Cassidy. Alexa Bliss versus Eve Marie. House of Torture versus Chaos. That's New Japan. People see, there's New Japan stuff on here. Britt Baker versus Nyla Rose. And Inner Circle versus American Top Team. I didn't think it was that bad, but what are you gonna do? Worst promotion of the year. WWE. Like I said before, if you want to bitch, if WWE fans want to bitch, then fine. Then give me a better, because you're not gonna say CMLL. You might say CML because you've heard people say CML was worse, but CML was worse. But they're also the biggest company in the world, and they are absolutely horrible. And when you're the biggest company in the world, yes, more people are going to have shots at you, and that is why they should not be the worst promotion in the world. It should not be 4 years since I, a lifelong wrestling fan, have watched WWE. That should not be a thing, and it is a thing. Ring of Honor died, so of course. Impact, maybe. NWA, definitely. NWA is really bad. I've tried, no. Best Booker, Tony Khan. Now, people get mad about this because they got mad last year about this. They were like, how could Tony Khan be the best Booker? Because everyone else sucks. That's why. Rosie Ogawa, who is the Noah Booker, booked Keiji Muto, who I love absolutely horribly, because he allowed Muto to go over everybody and then basically retire without putting over anybody. But I wouldn't put him there. But then you have Sean Shelby, who is the UFC booker. You could argue him. You have Gato. Gato had an absolutely horrible year. Brett Lauderdale, that's the GCW booker. He's not very good. And then Nasawa Rogani. I don't know who I think he's the Stardom booker. He probably should be higher, but there you go. Let's see. Promoter of the year. Tony Khan beat out Dana White. That's because people were very mad at Dana White, so there you go. Ogawa, Lauderdale, Kadami, that is the New Japan guy, and then Vince McMahon was 6th. So there you go. Why? Because WWE, even though, yes, they're bringing in all this money from the TV deals, everything else sucks. And people need to understand that. The rest of it sucks. If WWE did not have their TV deals, they would be in a shit ton of trouble right now. Their attendance sucks. By all accounts, the merchandise isn't doing as well as it should. It is not good. Best gimmick. Roman Reigns won this. I don't know what Roman Reigns' gimmick even is, but he won this. He beat out Orange Cassidy barely by 10 votes. Adam Page. I don't even know what Adam Page's gimmick is. Malachi Black. Danhausen or Orange Cassidy probably should have won this. Starlight Kid. Matt Cardona, like again, I said, Matt Cardona probably had the best angle, best gimmick all year. Miro, Hook, and Kenny Omega. Now, why is Hook on this and not on? There's reasons for this, but Hook's gimmick pretty much was all year, so he just didn't wrestle. Worst gimmick, Alexa Bliss. Alexa Bliss was horrible. You can't defend it. You can sit there and say, "Oh, what about these make believe?" And it is make believe merch numbers that aren't real. Everyone with a shred of decency, a shred of anything, pointed out that the merch numbers that people were throwing out were not real. Nikki Ash, by all accounts, I didn't see, but sounded horrible. House of Torture, New Japan. Hey, wait, there's a New Japan? Yes. Happy Corbin, The Fiend, Bray Wyatt. Now, people will go, oh, but The Fiend's on here. Roman Reigns, Joe Gacy, Cody Rhodes, Big Money Matt Hardy, Doudrop, The Best Friends, and Seth Rollins. Now, for those of you that do not know, The Fiend, Bray Wyatt, won Best Gimmick of the Year twice on these awards. Now, how is it that they won twice on these awards, but somehow the fans hate him? Maybe because the gimmick was once good, was once kind of entertaining, and then turned into complete shit. And then they basically handed it off to Alexa Bliss, and it was still shit. So there you go. If you get mad about that, I don't know what to tell you. Best Pro Wrestling Book was Jon Moxley. That should not surprise anybody. By all accounts, I have not read it. I'm hoping that the audiobook comes out soon, so that I can listen to it. But by all accounts, it was an awesome book, and it is not a good book if you like WWE, because it does not paint them in the best thing. Then you have the Pro Wrestling Documentary of the Year. If you want to know who the Voices of Wrestling New Japan Year in Review book from last year, the Complete List of Jericho, that's kind of weird to me. Drew McIntyre's book, and, Masters of the Ring Buddy Rogers by Tim Hornbaker, the 1993 Wrestling Observer Yearbook by Dave Meltzer, Truth Be Told by Brian Blair, and Butts in the Seats, the Tony Schiavone story. I believe that is the comic book that he came out with. Then you have the Best Documentary. This is the last one. This was all pretty much Dark Side of the Ring. The Brian Pillman one. Second was Plane Ride from Hell. As Dave noted, a lot of people, oh my God, Plane Ride from Hell, but they didn't get a lot of stuff right. Especially if you, I remember when it happened, and I remember a lot of the stuff at the time. Nick Gage was 3, Grizzly Smith was 4, FMW, which was really, really good, especially if you're like an FMW fan like myself, was 5. Collision in Korea, if you remember that, was 6. Chris Canyon was 7. That was another really good one. Steroid Trials was 8, which it was good, but they could have done better. And then you had the A&E Bret Hart biography, the A&E Steve Austin biography, and then the Austin biography was tied with the Dynamite Kid by Dark Side of the Ring. So there you go. That is all your stuff. Now, hopefully I kind of explained why who won. Now, yes, this is not, these fans are not big into WWE. They're much like myself. Like I said, I've not watched WWE in a long, almost 4 years. There's a lot of people like me that have not watched it. Why? Because we don't like it. Because it's bad. It's bad pro wrestling. I understand that for some of you, you only know WWE. For some of you, you only know Vince McMahon wrestling and Vince Russo wrestling. Anything outside of that is like complete like chaos and like, oh my God, that's not pro wrestling. And that's not true. There was 100 years of pro wrestling before those two gentlemen, right? And none of you are willing to, again, like when I came on here back in 2007, and I talked about Ring of Honor, I talked about New Japan, I talked about, the indies that were going on, I talked about Noah at the time, all of that stuff. It's the exact same thing. That's this narrow-minded, oh my God, this isn't what pro wrestling I know, so it's not pro wrestling. And yet ignoring everything else. You can point to the $1 billion But the reason why they have $1 billion has nothing to do with how good the product is. It has to do with lots of other factors outside of that. If they get a bigger TV deal, more power to them. For people to bury their heads in the sand, get upset because Dave picked these awards, which he didn't. He has virtually nothing to do with it. Like I said, if it was up to Dave's, CMLL would have won worst promotion of the year. Now I will agree there like I said, worst show of the year. WWE fans have should have a beef, but it is the overall, I think, frustration, how upset people are with WWE, and the fact that WWE diehards do not recognize this, do not recognize the frustration that people have, is so much like the old TNA fans. It's not even funny. It's ridiculous to the point that you just want to scream. I cannot believe that you have a bunch of people who get paid to follow pro wrestling, right? That say some of the god-awful crap shit that they say, defending WWE for various reasons which are not genuine. It's pretty crappy. And the fact that you have people like myself, you have people like many people who criticize WWE, well, you just don't like storytelling. Or, this is one I heard, that they're doing Thunder Rosa versus Britt Baker at the next pay-per-view. There was no build-up. What the fuck? Okay, you had a year build-up. You kept them apart. They teased that they were going to do a match at some point. You then find out that Britt Baker paid Martinez to take out Thunder Rosa because she didn't want her to have the title. Then paid her again to take her out more because she didn't want to have to face Thunder Rosa. Right? And then when Martinez failed, she beat up both of them to build up not one match, but 2 matches. What is this? 2 matches, yes. They built up Thunder Rosa and Britt, and they also beat Martinez versus Hayter. Right? But that is beyond that because, oh my god, I'm not getting 30-minute promos. I'm not getting bad TV acting in my pro wrestling. I'm actually getting how pro wrestling has worked for forever and works everywhere else around the world except for one place. And in that one place, it's not working that well. And these people cannot get that through their heads. And it is amazing to me every time this comes out that we go through this. And this is also a big problem with the wrestling media as well, because anytime that Dave is misquoted, Dave says something that people don't understand because they don't understand the way Dave talks, as often is the case, or they dig up something that Dave said 30 years ago or 20 years ago and take it out of context and don't understand. These same people, these same wrestling media people, will jump on him for whatever reason, because I guess because he is attacking what the same thing as the TNA fans back in the day. He's attacking what they think of when it comes to pro wrestling. Pro wrestling is works around the world. The way the way Vince McMahon sees pro wrestling is the way Vince McMahon sees pro wrestling. He's the only one. He's the only one that sees it that way. The people in his company, if they go outside of WWE, don't even see pro wrestling that way. But to kiss Vince McMahon's ass, that's what we get. And yet, we are stuck with this. I don't get it. I never will get it. I never, ever, ever understand it. I've talked for about an hour now. That's probably way too long. Most people probably will not watch this whole thing or listen to it. But if they do, hey, I appreciate it. But it is absolutely amazing to me that every year we go through this. Every year we go through this ordeal that is the wrestling, because, oh my God, they underrepresent. Here's the thing. If you hate the awards, if you only because, oh my God, look at, go back, get on Wikipedia, because you can do this, and look at the winners. Look at the history of everything. Look at how the Observer has gone over time, and you will see that it's usually pretty dead on in their conclusion. Not always, but usually. Um, and that should surprise people. That should be, but people only go, oh my God, look at this. And I saw people talking about, oh my God, look at the vote totals, not understanding how the vote totals even work because they can't even take the time to research it and see how the vote totals work, right? How the voting even works, you know, because oh my God, it doesn't matter because they just hate WWE and that's all that matters, and there's no reason for them to hate WWE, and they just can't just like WWE, and all they do is without understanding. This is the biggest wrestling company in the world. This is the wrestling company that has the most influence in the entire world, and it is shit. And because of that, and the fact that most people outside of the pro wrestling like diehards only see pro wrestling as WWE, it hurts pro wrestling everywhere. And so wanting WWE to be better, wanting WWE even be okay, shouldn't be asking too much. Can't get it. When was the last time they created a new star? Legitimately created a new star. They won't do it. They haven't done it. And yeah. So it is amazing. It is absolutely amazing. I'm sure no one will watch this, but I feel better. I feel better, and that's what really matters, isn't it? But with that, I'm out. Have a good one. Later.